We will rise again. The day Rome falls, there will be a shout of freedom such as the world has never heard before.
We are starting at movie number 100, and it is Ben-Hur, but the 1959 version.
Here's a quick synopsis. A Jewish prince is betrayed and sent into slavery by a Roman friend in first century Jerusalem, but it's not long before he regains his freedom and comes back for revenge.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I had never heard of this movie. I had never seen it. This movie, honestly, it was a good movie. My big issue with it, though, is the fact that it was 3 hours and 42 minutes, and this was the longest movie I have ever seen in my life. And it felt like the longest movie I've ever seen in my life. I was not able to just watch it straight. I had to watch it over a few days because it just felt so long. Like, there was so much in this movie that did not need to be in this movie and that they could have left out or shortened. And I honestly felt like I was watching multiple movies in this movie. Like, this movie just had so much going on. And I mean, I really like the premise. I like how it took place during biblical times, and you kind of like have a whole storyline that focuses on like Jesus. And the last 40-ish minutes of the movie was about Jesus's crucifixion and kind of like how that related to the Ben-Hur characters. And the cool thing is, like, you did have Jesus in this movie, but you never actually see his face. Like, you just see his silhouette and the back of his head, so you see like the hair. And so they did have that, and they would say, like, towards the end too, like, it was just like they were stating a lot of scriptures as well, and it just felt like it was a whole different part of the movie. So also my big thing is this movie was not really a diverse cast, because watching this, I had to keep in mind that this movie came out in 1959, different time. And so there were some things like this exact movie could not be made nowadays. Like, you kind of had some blackface in this movie. You kind of had, it just wasn't really minorities. Like, you had one scene where you had some black people, but they were like barely there. And then you just didn't have minorities. I think one of the main leads was like Israeli, and that was like pretty much the extent. Other than that, it was pretty much a movie with white people, and then they would put stuff on them to make them look darker, essentially, is what you got with this movie. And so it could not be made, this exact movie cannot be made nowadays, but I know that there was like a newer version in 2016 that came out, so I don't know. I kind of want to watch it to see how it's different. I think it's shorter than this one, because there's no way they made a movie recently that's 3 hours and 42 minutes. Y'all, that was the worst part. So I really liked the villain in this movie, Marsala. He was a great villain because I hated him with every fiber of my being, just because he wasn't like just a villain. He was a cruel person too. Like, he had grown up with Ben-Hur and his family. Like, he knew them so well. And basically in the beginning of the movie, he gives Ben-Hur an ultimatum where he's like, I want you to snitch on your people that are trying to go against the Romans. And Ben-Hur's like, I'm not going to tell you who that is. Like, I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in any of that. And so Marcella is like, you either tell me, like, you're either with me or you're against me. And so if you don't tell me, you're against me. And so basically, the jump forward in the movie, and he basically sends Ben-Hur and his family into like jail to be like slaves and stuff, because even though it's like an accident that happened, and even the villain knows it's an accident, but he's like, nah, I'm using you as an example. And so he was just a really cruel person. And I mean, honestly, that kind of hurt my heart a little bit, just because they were such friends, they knew each other. But what Marcella wanted was, what the villain wanted was more important, and he just wanted to be successful and to move up in the Rome Empire, and he did that at the cost of his friends. And I mean, that was rough. And then you had like a love part that was kind of there, and I was like, that part's okay. But then I kind of feel like this movie had a little bit of everything, because it was so long, it kind of had to have a little bit of everything. Some of the scenes, I will say, were like really graphic watching them, and I was just like, oh, like, you kind of had people getting whipped, which was kind of hard to watch. Then you have like chariot races where the people were falling. Then you got the crucifixion later. You got like, you have so much stuff that was just very vivid, very right there. And I feel like that makes sense because it was a movie from 1959. And so that's kind of what they did there. And I don't know, I have a lot of feels about this movie. Like, this was a kind of rough one to start off, just because it was so long and it felt so long. Honestly, it's a good movie. I understand why it made the list, but because I mean, back in the day, it probably was so cool with all the sets that they had, all that they were doing back in the 1950s. But it's just so long. That's really my biggest complaint, was the length of it. They really could have cut out like so much stuff. Like, there were so many like subplots going on, and then they were like trying to tie in like Jesus into it, and then Ben-Hur, then like him wrote, like, it was just kind of, there were parts that were all over the place, and I was like, what is happening with this movie? And it was just a lot of like boring parts too that were just kind of there. And I think that's honestly why I could not just sit and watch this movie. Like, I mean, ideally I would like to just sit, knock it out, and then be done. But no, this movie took me multiple days, because I would watch it, and then I would be like, I would like pause it, and I would be like, how is this? How am I only here in this movie? Like, I've been watching this forever, and I'm only here. Like, it just felt so long. Let me know if you have seen this version of Ben-Hur, what you think. We knocked out number 100, and I'll see y'all soon for number 99.
This has been another episode of Real Talk with Noelle.